Welcome back and thank you for joining A Shark's Perspective. I am Kenneth Shark Kinney, your host and Chief Shark Officer. Let me tell you about an amazing sponsor who helps make this show possible. I hope that you'll take a look at Drips, the founders of conversational texting, where they use conversational AI to help you reach customers where they're most responsive, and that's on their phones. And working with major brands like 3-Day Blinds, Liberty Mutual, Credit Repair, and Gainsco, Drips is leading the way for some of the biggest brands in the world to improve engagement rates and outcomes for their prospects and customers. And now back to the show. Clubhouse was the new social audio app that began in April 2020 and really dominated social audio, especially during the pandemic. For many, it put the social back in social media. But as the app emerges, what does it take to really excel in building an audience, deepen relationships, and accelerate success in the creator economy? What does it take to have your voice heard on a crowded platform in order to be a true Clubhouse creator and stand out from the noise? Gary Henderson is the founder of digitalmarketing.org, a noted moderator and host of hundreds of rooms on Clubhouse, and the author of the Clubhouse Creator. And on this episode, we'll discuss Clubhouse and getting on and staying on a channel, the creator economy, scaling intimacy, the 4 C's to building an audience, being a great moderator, coming up on stage, building relationships, collaboration, helping people and answering questions, party hats, giraffes and NFTs, crypto and the Gary coin, giving out the green bean, Cam Newton, Kevin O'Leary, Puerto Rico, and a lot more. So let's tune into a Clubhouse creator with a Clubhouse shark on this episode of A Shark's Perspective. Gary, thank you so much for joining us today on A Shark's Perspective. I love how you framed your story from 2015 and early on in the book, but tell us a little bit about yourself, your brand, and your career to date.
Well, I started as an agency guy, right? I worked at an ad agency, and my first job when I dropped out of college was to take the agency and bring them digital. We didn't know how much money we were actually spending, so we would bill off of estimate, and we didn't know what it actually cost to produce the print jobs or what it actually cost to produce the digital design or how many hours it took. So I had a task. It was a 3-year goal to take and build this little touchscreen iMac system back in 2001. So we're talking like 21 years ago, long time ago. And I completed a 3-year job in 1 year. We trimmed down the staff, and after that, I quit. And I went and started my own company because they offered me a raise. Now, I made $20,000 that first year. They told me they were going to give me a big raise. So in my head, I'm like, well, 3 years, $20,000, like maybe 40. They offered me 10%. They were going to take me to 22,000. Well, I thought that was horrible. I didn't like that at all. So
welcome to the ad agency world.
Exactly. I didn't know that at the time, but I quit, and I went on to do some fun stuff. So we were the first agency in the United States to do video through email marketing. I worked with clients like Christina Aguilera, Lincoln Park, Carrot Top, AT&T. We worked with Ford Motor Company. I had the controlling access to a couple of misspells, so I was an OG spammer. So we had the misspell of Hotmail. So if you flip the A and the I, and I had the misspell of eBay, but I was what I called an ethical spammer, because whenever Hotmail was really big, I took the emails, I interpreted the correct address, I corrected it, and then I sent the original emails to all the places it was supposed to go, and I scraped all the databases, so I had a bunch of emails to spam. So I was doing that way back in like 2002, 2003. Just playing around. I did some sports stuff for a while. I created a all-star high school football game where Cam Newton was a recruit that we brought in, and he was the MVP that year. So I brought in Cam Newton and Des Bryant and a lot of those guys, Golden Tate. They came to the game that I created back in 2008. So I've just been playing around. And then from 2015, I started working with a bunch of influencers. Lewis Howes and Gabby Bernstein and Dr. Axe and Michael Hyatt. And I was the behind the scenes person. I was tweaking the little knobs and running the ads and dropping the marketing language. But I never took the time to build a brand for me. I was always just standing behind the scenes. And over the years, I decided there's just something different. I got kind of frustrated with doing the work, but having someone else be able to fire you. Typical agency stuff, like, you got results, it worked. They were happy, but then they decide not to pay anymore. Or somebody else comes up with a new great idea, so you lose the contract. And that just annoyed me because I wasn't smart enough to charge a percentage. So I just charged a flat fee. It was a big flat fee, but I just charged my flat fee. But back in the end of 2020, I said I'm going to go all in on my brand, and I'm not going to do done-for-you services anymore. I'm just going to help people as a consultant. I'm just going to guide people. I'm not going to do the work for them. I'm going to do it at scale. And I found Clubhouse. I thought when it first came out, I actually thought it was the Democrat app. So it came out to me around the time that Parler came out. So I thought Parler was the Republican app and Clubhouse was the Democrat app. No jokes. So I was like, I'm not getting on that. I don't want to talk politics. I'm trying to do business. No way. And I avoided it. And then a friend of mine invited me on the 24th of December. And I came in and I didn't enjoy it. About 3 days later, I came back and I gave it another shot. And a friend invited me up on stage. And I just started helping people and just started answering questions. And I grew a following. And the first 30 days I was on the app, we did 6 figures in cash. So it was just a wild energy moving.
Getting new marketing contracts to help people?
Oh, yeah, just consulting. Selling coaching packages, selling between anywhere from a $250 to a $500 program, and then selling on top of that a $12,000 offer. It was wild energy that was coming in those first days. And I signed a book contract and got my book contract with Hay House during those first 30 days. So this all happened in the first 30 days. Literally, I got onto the app on the 24th of December. I got active on the 27th. I signed my book deal on the 13th of January. And we're not quite at the 13th of January right now when we're talking. And I'm holding a book that you can go to Barnes & Noble and grab right now.
Amazing. Well, you were an early adopter of Clubhouse. Obviously, we're going to talk a lot about the book, and you got to 80-something thousand followers pretty quickly. You had some success for Clubhouse, but why do you think it's resonated for you with your brand? Is it strictly from just answering questions? Because I know we were talking about this a little bit before. There's obviously a lot of other influencers out there as well that have a lot of advice about digital marketing, for example, but they haven't run a digital marketing agency like you did or been heavily invested in that. What do you sometimes attribute what's worked for you? There are a lot of people that have tons of years of experience in different fields. And then there are a lot of people who talk about that same stuff and have tons of followers. And I always think it's interesting to see the dichotomy of what is good advice versus what's the one that comes from folks with a lot of followers.
And I think it's an interesting take. You kind of have people that are good at it, and then you have people that are good at communicating it, or good at communicating that they're good at it. And then you have the nice little happy medium in the middle that's good at both. They're really good at it, and they can communicate that they're good at it. They're comfortable talking about results. They're comfortable flexing a little bit. And that's a different type of person. Right? Because there's a lot of people that are just real good at it. They're the best workers. They're the best marketers. They're the best email marketers. But they just don't want to go tell anybody what they do. They don't want to tell anybody they're good at it. They just want to go do more of it. They enjoy it so much that they just want to go do more. And then you have the people who actually don't do too much. Maybe they had one big win or something like that. And that's all they do is they just go tell everybody how great they are. I'm great, I'm great, I'm great, I'm great. And we know those people too. But then you find that little happy medium. You find, and what you land on is you land on a Tony Robbins. You land on a Gary V. Because they're really good at what they do. Their art, their magic. And they're really good at telling people that they're really good at that.
Yeah, that's a great explanation. Because we were talking about Ann Hanley before, who was on show 100, and I remember talking to her probably offline about this. But she does so much for content marketing and things like that. But she also, I think, if she was to have a conversation with me about crypto or pay-per-click advertising, I'd listen to it because she's so good at communicating it, especially on stage, that you give her that benefit of the doubt. And so your
She has
stage
her own
is,
cryptocurrency.
well,
Did you
that's
know that?
true. Yeah, she does. I have seen it. I said, I got to get a Shark crypto soon. So is it fair then to say, so let's talk about the Clubhouse Creator, build your audience, deepen relationships, and accelerate success in the creator economy. Very good book. I was really looking forward to this when I got a copy from your publisher. But is it fair to start this discussion then by talking about what this book is? For me, before reading it, I initially believed it was all going to be some tactical, points and questions on how to build to 80,000+ followers like you did. You do a very good job of explaining that. It's a great book. But what it seemed just as much as anything to me really was that it's a discussion about being a successful creator in the creator economy. Is that a fair point?
It's 100%. When I wrote the book, we were writing it in a time where, so I worked with a lady named Melinda Cross. She was my collaborative writer. I'm not a written person. I'm way more audio, as it's Clubhouse. So Melinda and I just had conversations, and we had this weird balance of, I wanted human psychology relationships because that's what Clubhouse is. My publisher wanted tactics and a guidebook because that's what they wanted to produce, the right size, so we went back and forth. I want enough that if you read the book and you never, ever, ever went on Clubhouse, it would still be very impactful in where you're headed.
Yeah. Well, you could change the medium. You could say this was a Facebook or TikTok or whatever.
Yep. So I did that because I also didn't know where Clubhouse was going to be. It was a beta app. I was writing a book. We were heavily invested in writing a book through beta. That's really odd to do in the first place. We were writing it fast. So we went from first words went on paper in March. Manuscript was due in May. Final manuscript was done in June. And it was on shelves on December 7th. So we were so fast trying to move through here. We had to accelerate so many little points to go through. I had to plant seeds to have other people go do things so I could have more data coming back, like Kim Walsh Phillips or ISIS, or, trying their pieces to come in, because there's no way we could have produced that. So I didn't want to lean too heavy in the tactical stuff because I didn't know what was going to happen. I also, green room started to pop out for a minute. I knew everybody else was building social audio, and I'm like, man, if Clubhouse shits the bed, I'm going to make this like it's a green cover. This is the green room creator, luckily Clubhouse is here and they're doing some pretty epic stuff. So I'm really glad it's the Clubhouse Creator.
Well, let's dive in a little further into the book and talk about starting to build a following. Help us understand, if you will, the 4 C's that you discuss in the book on how future creators feel confident and comfortable to build their audience. I think it was consume, contribute, collaborate, and create.
Yeah, exactly. So there are 4 things you want to do on Clubhouse. When you first come into Clubhouse, right, when you get an account or you're hanging out, you're going to be a consumer. You're going to sit in the audience and you're going to listen.
Consumer with a party hat.
Yeah, with a party hat for the first 7 days. But you're going to be a consumer and you're just going to listen. And then over time, you'll start to evolve and you'll raise your hand. And you'll come up on stage, you'll feel comfortable, and you'll come up on stage and start to have a conversation. So at that point in time, you're a contributor. You're contributing to the conversation that's happening. Maybe eventually you start to build relationships on the app and you collaborate with someone else, like you and I may collaborate and do a room together. Well, now we're collaborating. And then at the end of the day, you've got to step up and be a creator because that's your own vibe, that's your own energy. Well, as that's the natural evolution, most of the time people forget that process. They go to creator and they're just done. All they do is create. So I think it's super important to still spend time on a daily basis, 10% of your time in the audience listening to content. Anything. So if you're going to go spend an hour on Clubhouse, you're going to spend 10% of that hour in the audience listening. You're never going to raise your hand. You're never going to go on stage. You're going to spend 20% of that hour on stage as a contributor. Just raising your hand, you didn't plan it, you're not collaborating. You're going to spend some time, about 20% of your time, actually in planned collaboration so we can build audience together. You've got an audience, I've got an audience. We need to share that so we can expose each other's audiences. And then at the end of the day, you'll go create your own vibe, your own energy, and you'll spend half of your time there, 50% of your time in the creator seat. It's the scariest seat to be in. but it's the place that you get to drive leads. It's the place you get to grow your audience. It's the place you get to talk about what you want to talk about. You get people that come back to you. They come to your room, they show up, they contribute on your stages, they raise their hands, they listen. So spending 50% of your time there is so crucial in Clubhouse.
Are you going in and listening to rooms just on your own, or are you always moderating or being pulled up on stage? And it probably, I would imagine, because of the name you've created there, you almost have to have another phone with another app and another fake account to be able to hide a little bit.
I actually don't. I stay very public. I go into rooms and listen all the time. So I like to go to the bottom of my hallway and find small rooms. And there may be 5 or 6 people in it. And I'll walk in and I'll just listen to the audience. And what I'm listening for is, well, who's this person? Do I want to collaborate with them sometime? Do they have a small audience? Because if I can bring 50 or 60 people and they can bring 5 or 10 or 15 people, we could have a great room together. And if I could put 5 or 6 of those people together, maybe we could get to 120 or 130 people. And if I reached out to them, they maybe want to collaborate with me. So I every day I go to the bottom of the hallway and I do that. I spend a lot of time in social rooms. Social rooms are really small, private environments, and I spend a lot of time with some of the top creators on the app in social rooms. Different segments of creators, like Ion that's doing some cool content, or, like we'll be in social rooms together, building really tight relationships, and then we'll go on the big public stage, and there'll be banter and all that stuff because we're building relationships on the app differently.
You're doing such a good job building relationships, but one of the things I'm really interested in, you talked about this earlier about being able to monetize Clubhouse, and you did such a great job early on with getting contracts. One of the things that I think is that a lot of people are neglecting right now is continuing to build relationships and not just look at the platform as some new predatory tool to build a following and sell somebody a program that nobody wants. A lot of people, at least today, I'm hearing, are complaining about those folks taking over, pushing rooms, and nobody's demanded to stay inside a room they don't like anyway. But the ones that I've seen that have become successful are the ones that are not constantly selling, but then they sell on the back end in a quiet way. Is that what you're seeing as well? Or
it is. I mean, to me, it's scaling intimacy.
Yeah.
So, if you and I were in the same mastermind group, like if we were out in Durango and we were both in Jeff Walker's mastermind group, and there was 30 or 40 of us in the room, we'd all kind of build a relationship together. We'd all be talking to each other. We'd all be doing business together and helping each other out. So what I figured out how to do on Clubhouse was scale that intimacy. So
were you doing that before Clubhouse in other facets of your life?
In masterminds, I'd never scaled it. Now I had helped my clients scale it, but they scaled it their way. They scaled it like I would tell them, I would film the video and send a video to Lewis, and he would refilm the video in his own voice, and that would be his sales video. So I was that ingrained. Like Lewis House, his inner circle was created at my dining room table. The last time he was at my house, I lost our cornhole game because I sucked that night. We were having a barbecue in my backyard. Like I was really ingrained in the growth of his company. So I had scaled intimacy from the back, but I'd never done it from the front. And that's what I figure out. So scaling this intimacy points allows me to grow, allows anyone to do that.
Yeah. How are you using Clubhouse then, at least to help push and sell the book?
Reed Tracy, the CEO of Hay House, he told me something years ago. He said, Gary, if you want to sell a lot of books, there's only one thing you got to do. Do you know what the one thing is to sell a lot of books?
Market the mess out of it. I don't know.
He said, get people to read your book. He said, everyone thinks, I got to sell a lot of books. I got to get a lot of emails. I got to do this. I got to do that. He said, no. He said, when someone buys your book, they buy a copy of your book. When someone reads your book, they tell others about your book. So years ago, I've known Reed for 7 years now. And he said, Hay House, we're not the publishing company. We don't care if you hit the New York Times bestselling list. We want great authors that are going to write great content and sell books for a long period of time. So that's my goal. That's what I'm doing. I'm building relationships with people at scale. I'm scaling intimacy daily. New people, like I was in an NFT room this morning, and Hiromi, she says, Gary, I fell asleep last night reading your book. There was 145 people in that room. So I don't have to now go tell people about my book. She's going to go tell people to her 145 people that are there. I was just contributing on stage.
Interesting. Well, I will tell you that as somebody, for anybody that comes up that has a book, that wants to talk about a book, I did read your book and I did thoroughly enjoy it. And that's why I wanted to talk to you and hear about it. You know, you talk about this later as a pre-funnel step, but how does someone go about defining their value as a creator? I really like your take on that with value.
Yeah, I mean, I just like to be me. I like to tell my story. I like to get people to lean into me. No one can determine what my value is. Like it's just what it's this weird, I don't know, it's this weird lean in. Most of the time we say, you know, this is my ideal person, this is what I charge, this is this, this is this. I've been able to flip the equation a little bit. So I tell stories to everyone. If you look at my audience, I have people all over the world. I have people that are creators. I have people that wishes they were creators. I have people that are just cheering for me because they're fans of me. I have people that I've never met that own thousands of dollars of my cryptocurrency. I have people telling, like, cheering that they have giraffes, my NFT collection. Like, it's putting the creations out into the world and then just serving and just serving. And then they come in and buy at their own choice. They take that path when they're ready. I mean, it's really, really hard to explain because it's like nothing else. You know, I sell Gary coin and you buy one and then you go buy 2 or 3 or 4 or 5. I have people that have 13,000 Gary coins and they just keep buying them. So I'm not calling them and saying, you know, hey, Shark, you want to buy a Gary coin today? They're just going and buying it on their own because they want to. And when they want to sell it, they sell it. It's just, it's really odd. I'm not having any direct contact with anyone like that.
Yeah. So what's some advice then to managing a stage successfully?
Keep your cool and keep calm. Don't give out the green bean to too many people. Clubhouse created a weird hierarchy on stage. Green bean or no green bean. So for me, I don't give the green bean out to anybody. I keep the green bean myself unless I needed an assistant or something, or you and I were co-modding together. I would do that. But other than that, I don't, because then I can control who comes up on stage and who goes down. I get to control who mutes who and who ends my room. I get to control who pushes who around because there's certain privileges you have when you're the moderator, you have the green bean.
Kick some folks out.
Exactly. So what I've found is if I give the green bean to you or the moderator badge and then you give it and you give it and you give it, before we know it, we got 30 moderators. Well, then it's like the stage has got 100 speakers. I don't have a clue who it is. This person's energy doesn't vibe with that person. So I just decided that I wasn't going to give it out. I was one of the first people to do that. I ruffled a ton of feathers around it. But for me, I like it. So keep your stage small enough and control that conversation.
Well, with notifications, whenever, I mean, just with some of the things that you can do from an admin standpoint, you get the same notification if Gary comes up on stage as a speaker or if he's the moderator. There's no difference. So don't give away all your privileges. I love that. What are some of the Clubhouse major fails that you've seen?
Oof. They haven't figured out. They haven't figured out.
It could be an audience question, not even a knock on Clubhouse. Let me put it that way.
I mean, I'll tell you what I tell their team. They haven't figured out how to take care of creators yet. So they need a way to look at you and say, if you meet this criteria and you create this content, we will give you some money. They need a way to incentivize you to create content because what Clubhouse needs is more creators. We need more creators creating quality content because more people want to come in and talk. Not everybody wants to talk to me. Sometimes they do. Sometimes they want to talk to you. Sometimes you and I want to talk, and sometimes we want to bring in 44 other people to talk with us. So they need more content because what happens is if I open up my phone and I pull up Clubhouse as a normal consumer, an audience member, not a marketer like you and I, but as a normal consumer, they're going to say, I don't see any good rooms. And if I don't see any good rooms for a day or 2 or 3, then I'm going to stop opening up Clubhouse. I'm going to go back to Instagram, or I'm going to go back to YouTube or TikTok or wherever else I would go with my idle time. And then over time, I'll eventually forget about Clubhouse because it just won't be in my mind anymore. And I'll be like, man, I haven't been on that app in forever. So what we need is more creators. So Clubhouse's biggest fail to me is they haven't figured out a path to reward creators like you and I for creating the content that we're creating. Now, I've figured out how to make a lot of money myself, but not everybody has. And that's the biggest complaint that I hear.
Well, and when I got back out on the road in 2021 at more in-person speaking events, I noticed in particular that I wasn't as excited about getting on Clubhouse at the time because the rooms I was also going into were full of a lot of coaches selling dumb coaching programs, selling water to the thirsty. And so it made me think this a little bit, because I want to ask you this. Clubhouse hit us at a time where we needed to be able to have open discussions and connect in a way during COVID, like no other app really did anything. I mean, but honestly, between TikTok and Clubhouse, I think my mental brain was saved over the last 2020 and 2021. But this platform's evolving. I get a notification every time I hop on there, the latest, to dismiss or see the new things that happen in Clubhouse. So they're doing a lot of changes. Gary, if you were writing version 2.0 of your book 5 years from now, where do you think the future of this is going with Clubhouse in particular?
I can tell you where they could go. And I think there's about an 80% chance it might land there. So Clubhouse is going to be launching a social token, a cryptocurrency on platform in the next 3 to 6 months. And that's pretty confirmed by the team. It's coming. They're not sure of the details of what it's going to be yet. It's not fully fleshed out. But that's the 98.5% lean that Clubhouse is going social token.
But do you think that's the general value to the audience or to the creators like you who are okay?
It's both, because I want to have some Shark coin and some Gary coin, and I want to be able to trade them back and forth. And that's where the world's going to go. So we're going to decentralize in that way. And we're just going to be able to say, oh, you did good, so here, I'll toss you a little bit of coin, or I'll buy some of your coin and hold them, or I want to come to your rooms, because Clubhouse is going to create, this year I think they had 200 rooms per minute that was created on Clubhouse every minute of the year this year. Or last year, 2021. So what they're creating is more and more small environments. So, you're an Alabama fan, right?
Roll Tide. Didn't go there, but Roll Tide.
So, but maybe you and some of the other Alabama fans would get together today and talk about how much the game wasn't your favorite last night. And maybe some of those fans you would follow because you just start having a conversation, and because you're just living life with them. The same thing that you might go to the bar and do, or the same thing you might go on Facebook and post about. You would just pull up Clubhouse and have a conversation. And then what you'll find is, these other Alabama fans, they also have businesses just like me. They also they like to go swim with sharks just like me. And you'll start building connections. So you're going to build relationships in a digital world. That's the metaverse. That's what Clubhouse is. You're building relationships with people all over the world. So now instead of going to the neighborhood bar, the neighborhood coffee shop to hang out with your locals, you go into the Clubhouse room and hang out with your locals there. Your locals just happen to be all over the world. But they're the people you're talking to every single day. They're the people you're engaging with every single day. You're seeing those people more than you're seeing the people at the coffee shop or the local bar or wherever you hang out. That's where we're going to be in the next couple of years.
It's interesting. I think Clubhouse seems to be at least addressing that more than a lot of the other platforms. They know they need to do something. That's the good news.
And that's where their rooms are trending. Their rooms are trending away from these big stages with big, massive audiences, unless it's something super buzzy. Right? If it's something buzzy, if it's,
or celebrity comes in.
Yeah, exactly. Right. That's just normal. They have massive audiences. But what it's trending to is let's put this small group of people together that want to talk about this thing, and let's let them do that. And maybe some people hang out in the audience and listen to that conversation. And then let's do the same thing over there with some other group of people.
You've had some of those big, massive rooms before. Who's some of the biggest names you've talked to on the platform?
Oh, I brought in Kevin O'Leary. So he was in my club, Gary Club. Kim Walsh Phillips was actually interviewing him, and she didn't have a club yet. So I said, well, let's host him in Gary Club.
Yeah, no.
So that was cool.
How nice of you.
And Kim's featured. She's a great friend of mine. She's featured very nice in my book. But I was like, I'll roll out the red carpet for him and come in. And we put a great crowd there. Grant Cardone, Tiffany Haddish. Oh man, it's Damon John, Paris Hilton. Like, I remember one night I was giving relationship advice to B. Simone, and Paris Hilton was in the audience listening about what it was like to be raised by a single mom and stuff like that. So we were just talking about relationships. So just wild stuff. Spectacular Smith, he's in the one of the old school hip hop bands. And Spec, shared the stage with him so many times. So many true connections I've built too. Not just share a stage, but actually, Grant Cardone and I are conversational. If he hears my voice, he knows my voice. He'll say, "Oh, that's Gary." It's conversational now with a lot of those people. Jim Quick and I built a relationship together. A lot of the people that I knew from traveling to conferences and stuff. But I was the behind the scenes guy. So to me, I was like, oh, those are my people. But I was never the one on the stage speaking. I was always the behind the scenes guy. So they weren't my people. I was their audience. But now, we started to level that playing field a lot more and had some just insane relationships built with Todd Herman and people like that.
And the conversations are so different. I remember hearing Jared Leto one time when he was out promoting a new movie of his. The conversation talked a little bit about the movie, and the rest was just weird stuff about life you wouldn't think you would normally do on a Good Morning America type interview. So it's interesting how this platform lets people sort of explore a real conversation, granted with hundreds or thousands of followers in the background, but it's very it's scaling intimacy. So, well, Gary, you're in beautiful Puerto Rico. A few, but not a lot of sharks in PR due to some overfishing. But I ask this of all my guests on a shark's perspective, because I have been diving there as well. What is your favorite kind of shark and why? You grew up on the coast.
I don't even know that I have a favorite kind of shark. Sharks, I have a weird relationship with sharks. So I dated a marine biologist in college, and I grew up most of my life in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. So whenever I turned 17, so the first year's not, but anyway. And she told me there were 200 sharks from end of pier to the coast in Myrtle Beach. And from that point on, I don't go in the ocean in Myrtle Beach anymore. I just don't. She worked at the aquarium in Myrtle Beach, and they were clients of mine. So I've been all behind the scenes. I've seen all of that. I don't know that I have a favorite shark. I guess some of the, I was really fascinated a couple years ago. We had one of the great whites pinging off the South Carolina coast all the time. That really fascinated me. So I guess maybe that.
Either that or Kevin O'Leary.
Yeah, that could happen too. But no, it's I was really fascinated when that one great white just kept pinging in Pawleys Island, South Carolina, because that's where I lived. And then it would ping up in Boston, and then it would come back down. And I was like, wow, that's... I don't know enough about sharks, but I thought that was quite fascinating. It was traveling that far and coming back to the same places over and over again.
Yeah, the Carolinas have a very interesting shark population from North Carolina to South Carolina. A lot. Some of them get inside the sounds, like the bull sharks peer in. It's through those estuaries, but it's a very interesting community. A lot of shipwrecks, especially off North Carolina, but a lot of shipwrecks in that area where a lot of sharks, a lot of sandbar sharks are off in there as well. So, all right. Well, Gary, it's a special time in the show. Are you ready for the 5 most interesting and important questions you're going to be asked today?
Ready.
That are not Clubhouse questions. All right. Not typical Clubhouse questions anyway. All right. Number 1, it's a Clubhouse bio question with social media platforms for connecting with people, at least as far as how they started. Twitter or Instagram?
Twitter.
Why so?
You get to build a relationship quicker and easier. Instagram, you show your pictures. Twitter, you get to express your thoughts.
And they've got reels in case you want to or not reels, spaces, in case
Yep,
you want
spaces.
in case you want to go that route as well. All right, number
Yep.
2. It's not to be a softball question, but audio or video?
Audio. You have to be able to tell a story differently. And when you can tell stories, people they visualize what you're telling them, so they take the journey with you. When you're telling somebody and they're watching you, they can space out so much easier because they don't have to comprehend as much. So audio 100%.
Great point. All right, number 3, the beaches of South Carolina or the beaches of Puerto Rico. And let's not talk about the sharks, but just the beaches.
Puerto Rico and 100%.
Yeah, that was more of a softball question than anything else.
I mean, except for the South Carolina beaches are really wide. So I do miss that because Puerto Rico has really narrow and small beaches, a lot of them, but really like small beaches, where South Carolina has like huge stretches. So that's kind of cool in South Carolina.
Different color sand in PR. But you can't, South Carolina, you can get Laffy Taffy, a tattoo, and an airbrush t-shirt better than you can
that's right.
in the Caribbean. So, all right, number 4, being a moderator or being a listener? Moderator, speaker, or a listener?
I go to Clubhouse to work, so moderator, speaker for me. It's business whenever I go. I spend about 10% of my time listening. The rest of the time I'm there to speak. And if I'm not speaking, I'm usually out of the Clubhouse.
Fair enough. Number 5, and the most important question that you're going to be asked today is biscuits or cornbread?
Biscuits. Good, nice biscuits with some gravy on top.
Man of the South. So Gary, where can people find out more about you, get a copy of the book, the Bitcoin, the NFT, all the things?
Best place is gary.club. So when you go to gary.club, you'll put your email in and you'll get all my links on the second page. You'll get some contact information from me and everything else you need there.
Gary, again, great book. Well done. Congratulations. And thank you again for being with us today on A Shark's Perspective.
Thank you so much.
So there was my conversation with Gary Henderson, the founder of digitalmarketing.org, a noted moderator and host of hundreds of rooms on Clubhouse, and the author of the Clubhouse Creator. Let's take a look at 3 key takeaways from my conversation with him. First, it's a great lesson for any social media effort, or for anything to that matter. Lots of people come and go on social channels, but Gary's all in, and he's committed to Clubhouse as well as helping it grow. The app is maturing, and much of its continued success, I feel, will be because of that kind of commitment and guidance. Second, this book is named and about being a Clubhouse creator, but regardless of the channel, to me, it's more about the creator economy. As the creator economy continues to evolve, the mindset that he brings will help creators have a much more lasting impact. Third, Gary's 4 C's to building an audience are consume, contribute, collaborate, and create. He reminds us not to forget that process so that we're not just spinning our wheels and creating only. Spend time on a daily basis with a little bit just listening, a little more as a contributor, and then the rest of the time creating. But don't forget sometimes just to listen. Got a question? Send me an email to kenneth@asharksperspective.com. Thank you again for the privilege of your time. I'm so thankful to everyone who listens. Thank you to my sponsor and the amazing team at Drips. Please consider writing a review and letting me know your thoughts on the show. You can find me on Clubhouse, but for a better listen, collaborate with us in the water and join us on the next episode of A Shark's Perspective.